Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about articulation on the guitar, and this is a concept I really like to talk about because I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for guitarists. And I think it's also something that's not taught enough in lessons outside of just learning a song that has a specific articulation. So this is going to be something that I will be talking about some jazz-specific things within the video, but any style of guitarist can definitely benefit from this, so I recommend that you check it out, even if you're not a jazz player. I will mention if something is jazz specific or not as we go, or if it's like high gain guitar specific. So I'm going to use real musical examples a little bit later, but I want to start by demonstrating with just a scale shape. I'm going to use shape 7, which is the E shape scale shape. It's a little redundant. If that doesn't mean something to you, if you don't know what that means, I recommend you go back in the playlist and watch a video that's titled something like The Caged System and the 5 Scale Shapes. They're extremely useful and beneficial for any guitarist. And that's not just like pumping it up, like it's really good stuff. So first I'm going to pick every note. That kind of articulation is something we're all used to, I think. That's how we generally start playing the guitar, right? Is playing every single note. So if we have like 1, 2, 3, 4. Pick, 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 pick. Everything's very consistent. Everything has a defined sound to it, and that's what you get when you pick every note. You could go through the entire rest of your guitar playing life and just do that and sound great if you like that sound. There's a lot of guitarists that I like to listen to who do that, and it's a very good possibility. But I also like guitarists who slur, and that's the next possibility. And really, part of the goal here is so that you can hear the difference in the future. When you're listening to like one of your favorite guitarists, you can say, oh, I think he actually slurs more than picks. Then you can start implementing that into your own playing. So here's what we would have if we would do one method of slurring. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that one is I'm slurring the first 2 notes and I'm picking the note after that if there is a third note. So I'm going pick, 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 pick. Sorry, breath there. Pick, 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 pick. It's a mouthful, so you get the idea though. So every time I hit a new string, I'm picking, and then I immediately slur the next note, and then if there's another note on the string, I'll pick it. Or now, this is worth mentioning that when I slow this down, you can hear a big volume difference, and if I speed it up, you don't notice the volume difference as much. So this is something to be aware of. If you want consistent volume in your notes at a slower speed, then you will probably want to pick those notes. If you're a high gain player, it doesn't matter as much because the distortion or gain or overdrive will give you extra sustain, and it'll be more sensitive for your left hand with what it's doing, and you won't need to deal with that as much. This is one reason why I don't personally pick like this, where I'm going pick, 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 only picking at the beginning of each string, because I feel like I lose too much definition on the last note on the string. Now, if I have more than 3 notes on the string, there's 2 possibilities. If there were 8th notes, pick, 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 and so on. So it's play, slur, sorry, pick, slur, pick, slur, pick, slur, pick, slur. Now, if they're not 8th notes, and if it's more like a glissando, or if it is a 16th note triplet, like or 16th notes like in jazz, when we get these phrases, then this, I'll go pick, pick. And that's because I want the first note to be defined, and I want the arrival note to be defined, or backwards. So that's just something to consider as you're going through, is that the context will make a difference on which one you might want to use or which sound you might like. Now, let's get to some real music examples. I'm going to use the song Celia for this. It's a Bud Powell tune. It's a really nice song. It's kind of like a modified Rhythm Changes. It's not exactly Rhythm Changes, but it has a lot of similarities. And I chose this one because it doesn't have a lot of notes that are crossing strings. When you're crossing strings with this, obviously you're not going to slur jumping to another string. So like that, they're all in different strings, so I'm not going to be able to slur these notes, and I thought it wouldn't be a great example. So Celia does kind of have a lot of notes that do stay on the same string. So the only thing we have to talk about before we start with this is the idea of swing eighth notes, and when might be a good idea to slur if you have swing eighth notes. So this is probably something that some of you have already thought about or heard, so I'll be brief. But with swing eighth notes, we have a longer part of the beat and a shorter part of the beat. So if we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, then it's long, short, long, short, long, short, long. Going from the number to the and, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Going from the number to the and, like 1 and, is the long part of the beat. Going from the and to the next number, 1 and 2, is the quick part of the beat. Now just naturally, a slur makes sense going from the shorter part of it, both to keep the volume consistent and because it is jazz is a syncopated music, and that makes it sound like you're emphasizing offbeats. And it's just a lot, I'm sure without thinking of that, a lot of people do that naturally. And on upright bass, like if I'm bowing a solo or something, then that's also something I'll do is bow the same way. So let's get right into the tune. So this is how it goes. I'm going to skip the intro and I'll tell you why in a second. Let me start with slurs actually instead of single notes. 1, 2, 3. So what we're getting is 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. So immediately I'm taking the short parts of the beat, going from the and to the number, and slurring those notes. You don't have to think about this and start writing down, oh my god, which one is the and the number, because you'll eventually start to instinctually know that you're playing a quicker part of the beat. And it won't matter so much that, okay, I'm playing an and to a number. It'll be, I know that if we have 1 and 2 and 3, that's the fast part of the beat. So that was, and I should also mention very quickly that I do not like exclusively do just one or the other in terms of slurs or strict picking every note. So I might be throwing in picks without thinking about it. I'll give you an example of how I might play it just normally in my own way at the end. Now, if I picked every note to give you an idea of the sound difference between the two, this is what we would get. Sorry, and this next part I should mention, I'm not going to go, if I even could, it just doesn't sound good that way. To me, I think some people might do that, but I practice what I play practically, and I know that I want the sound of that sound, just like when I was talking about the example before. If there's 4 notes, sorry, I'm going to pick the first note and pick the last note. I'm going to pick the start and the target note. So the sound difference between the two, or there's no right or wrong way between them. In terms of strengths, at first you don't have to think as much if you pick everything, because you know you're locking into this pattern of going down and up. However, if you're playing quickly, slurring can be more beneficial in the long run because your right hand does not have to do as much. Now that actually, without me thinking about it, is how I would play it normally. So I was alternate picking when I wanted definition, and I was slurring when it was convenient, essentially, and when I liked the sound. And it's pretty much going to be slurring, again, on that quick part of the swing eighth note. not the long part from the number to the and, but the quick part from the and to the number. So we have other situations where a strict alternate picker who's picking every note might slur. So like this, that phrase. Another one is the intro in this song goes like this. So this, if we have a triplet like that, I can't really do it well because I don't practice that, but this, like in Donnelly, this, that's the example that I'm talking about. If I went, or with the slurs, it just kind of makes more sense to do a triplet with a hammer-on and a pull-off afterwards. Position shifting is also another useful one. Going back to Celia for a moment. That gets me back. I'm actually not shifting, I'm pivoting in that case. And I should make a video about that now that I think about it. A pivot is when you're not moving your hand back with the thumb. So it's like an extension of the current position. And it's a way that you can get around by using these three fingers more often by doing that position shift that's actually a pivot. And I don't want to say that I'm not a person who says in any way don't use your pinky and only use these three fingers, but for articulation it is more useful sometimes to prioritize one of these three fingers instead. So those are some real life situations. I think that covers most of what I wanted to talk about. So if you're interested in this, then number one, start listening to players and try to think, does this sound like a well-defined note every time the player is playing? If you listen to like George Benson, I'm talking jazz now, but if you listen to George Benson or Pat Martino, it sounds very much like every note. And again, there's exceptions. It's not all the time, but you hear this very often. If you listen to Pat Metheny or like Wes Montgomery, and again, not all the time, you hear these slurs more often. When I was starting, let's see, let me fast forward a bit. So in college, I switched to bass after just a year, and I didn't play guitar for a number of years, till like 2005 or so. And I was mainly teaching myself. I'm mostly self-taught. So my picking came directly from bowing on the upright bass. And I was used to down and up with the bass bow, so I'd go down and up with a pick. Since I couldn't slur by going like this with the bow, I would generally alternate pick everything. So over time, I had to teach myself to make myself do the slurs because it was a sound that I liked and I wanted to do. And those exercises are a good way to start, because if you don't have to think about what your fingers are doing, then you can focus on the slurring and when you're inserting slurs. And then you'll find that once you have a pretty good command of that, you'll start doing it naturally in music. You can practice songs that have it as well, you know, if you're not playing jazz, things like, you know, just songs that have slurs in them. And that'll help too, but just the more you do it and really think about what you're doing, you'll start to notice it sneaking into your own playing if you want it to. I think that about covers everything. I feel like I'm forgetting something here. But no, I think that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions about it, let me know. Eventually, maybe someday I'll start writing this stuff down, and if I was forgetting something, I would actually know right now. Please subscribe if you haven't, if you're interested in guitar, jazz guitar in particular, and have fun playing, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day or evening wherever you are. Thanks for watching.